Welcome to a special edition of the 25th Hour with your hosts, Bianca Forde and Alyse Adamson.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of 25th Hour Podcast. Somehow, Bianca, we have found the time.
We made it back. We were supposed to come back to the people on Friday, but life,
flights,
all the
kids,
things.
all of the things. But we did come back. Okay,
We did come back. We did come back. I'd first like to note that I have a new mic. And for the people, I did this for y'all. We invest in. I kind of hear Drake in the background, started from the bottom. Now we're here with our new mic.
It makes a huge difference though, right?
Yeah,
That's
I
like,
can hear myself. I think people will be able to hear me. You can hear me.
I can
Our
hear
producer
you.
won't be losing his mind when he's editing. We're excited. All right, well, let's get into it. I mean, we were in the Shy last time you saw us. We were in the same room, on the same street, I should say.
Crazy.
But it was the day before Diddy was sentenced, and now Diddy has been sentenced to a little over 4 years. He's requested Fort Dix, which I understand is a low security prison for non-violent criminals, and he was convicted for non-violent offenses. So we'll see what the judge does
Yeah,
with
but
that.
can I just say something
Yeah,
about that?
jump in.
Like, I feel you on that, but like, we're talking about non-violent individuals. It's the Bureau of Prisons that make the determination of where someone's going to go. Like, the conviction has a lot to do with it, but like not all of it. You know what I mean? We're no
Sure.
longer talking about a trial and evidence and beyond a reasonable doubt. We're talking about reality. And I just want to, Exhibit A, the Cassie video. We just know the guy has been violent in the past. Like, we have video evidence of it. So
Of course, we know that he has been violent. Domestic violence specifically is what that video shows, right? But he was not convicted of a violent crime in the context of how BOP, right, and our statutes define violent crime. So it's unclear. Even, I mean, obviously, you take the video on its face and it's absolutely true. He was violent physically against Cassie, but he was not convicted of a violent crime. And domestic violence is not a crime of violence when it doesn't involve a firearm or a weapon of some kind,
here's
right?
what I'm going to say. Ready? My lawyer hat is off. So I appreciate that because your lawyer hat is on. I took my lawyer hat off. Okay. And I'm just sitting here as Alyse. And what I know as someone who is a major hip hop fan and who followed Diddy back when he was Puff. Okay. He allegedly, I'm going to put the allegedly, beat a lot of people. I'm thinking about the Nas Hate Me Now video debacle, allegations that he'd get mad and go up. And it wasn't just domestic violence. He would solve his problems with violence. And so I'm hearing you. I'm just saying in reality, he's probably going to go to low security. Yes, he was only convicted of 2 prostitution related charges. He's got a gazillion dollars, he's got no criminal history. I'm not saying that's not where he's going to end up. I'm just sitting back and thinking, if it came down to it, I think he could hold his own in prison. That's all I'm saying. Like,
Look,
I don't
I think he could
he's
too.
gonna be, maybe he'll be a pacifist. I think he'll be a pacifist because he wants to get out early, and we can talk about that with his good time credit. He's gonna want to get out after he's only done 85% of his time.
Let's be clear. Sean P. Diddy Combs is not going to be violent in prison. You know why? Because he doesn't have a whole entourage around him to protect him. That's not going to happen. What he is going to do is teach some classes. He's going to teach some classes, the types of classes that he articulated in his letter to the judge. And I'm not saying he deserves to be in Fort Dix. I'm not even saying BOP is going to let him into Fort Dix. I'm just saying that on the standard of what qualifies as a nonviolent facility, that is Fort Dix, and he's been convicted of nonviolent crimes. But I really don't think that anyone is in danger in the prison because of Sean P. Diddy Combs.
I think some people out there would beg to differ, Bianca. Again, because he's only been to trial and convicted once, and it was for nonviolent offenses. I am going to be careful and say allegedly, but this man has a reputation. Okay, remember the other trial that he was acquitted of, where he was alleged to have shot a female in the club. That female still insists after all these years it was Combs who shot her. Now, again, he
Sure.
was acquitted of that. He is legally innocent of that charge. I'm just telling you what the victim has said. I'm just telling you what was reported back in the 90s and in the early 2000s. And what I'm telling you is, I hear you on the entourage point, but I actually do think Sean Combs can handle his business. And I think that he is going to be on his best behavior because he wants to get the hell on out of there. But I also think he is a man who can handle himself without an entourage. That's just what I believe.
I don't know. I'm not convinced.
Okay.
We haven't seen it. And I don't disagree with you that there's something that causes a person to do what he's done with an entourage, right? There are a lot of us who could have a lot of people swarming around us as security, and we're not going to, carry firearms. We're not going to wield them. We're not going to threaten people. We're not going to physically assault people, right? So there's something about his personality that even led him to be in that position. But what I'm saying is, I think the protection and the safety in numbers that he's had, and the people who were just willing to be his yes men, gave him a sense of security that he's just not going to have, at least to start out. Now, we've seen you can build security, right, in prison. You can make friends, you can build a team. So to that end, maybe you're right. Maybe we do see some violent propensities come out. But I do think
I didn't think,
the
no,
point of him
I
wanting to
said,
get out is real.
I'm going on record. I'm saying
Yeah.
he's going to be a Boy Scout in
Okay.
prison.
Did you read his letter? What did you think about his letter?
Listen, you and I have differing viewpoints about all this. I think it was a cynical attempt to get some time served. And here's the reason why. I think some of it was true or honest or earnest, but I don't think anybody can change in a year. I think nobody can change in just a year. I think people can make progress towards change, but change is like real meaningful change requires a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection. And that just happens over a long period of time, and self-discovery. And what Combs has been doing for the last year is gearing up for a huge trial. So I'm not saying that he couldn't have reflected during this time period, but he was also fighting for his freedom, and that was forefront in his mind. And so I don't think he really spent all of that time making himself better. And I think for someone like him who has demonstrated violent tendencies, especially towards intimate partners, he needs just extensive therapy.
Sure.
So
Agreed.
to say all of these things, how he's reformed and he sees the light, I don't buy all of it. I think, again, he knew the right things to say to a judge to be persuasive. Do I think there's a chance that ultimately he will take this time and get there and maybe continue when he leaves prison? Maybe. But I was not convinced. And that's because I was not always convinced when we were prosecuting cases, Bianca. A lot of times, sometimes defendants would speak and I could hear it in their voice that there was real contrition, an awareness of kind of their conduct and taking accountability. It seemed on the up and up. I just didn't get that sense here. And also as a defense attorney, most of my clients, I think, understand their place. And most of my clients, I do white collar now, so it's like technical offenses, but I've had a few individuals, clients, who I do think lack insight in their conduct, and they will say things that they think will help them, but I don't think they've truly grasped how they got to that place. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they need to do more internal work.
Sure. I think two things can be true. I think you're right. Sean Combs is going to need some serious therapy, but we know that type of treatment is not going to happen while he's incarcerated, right? Our prisons, our jails, they do not rehabilitate. In the United States, we drifted away from that in the 70s based on flawed research, and never made our way back because it's been too commercially profitable for us to incarcerate people long term without rehabilitating them, right? I think it's difficult to tell exactly how much he's grown over this time just from reading a letter. I will say that, and we talked about this in our last episode on the trial, I think that we are overly punitive as a nation. And because of that, we are so desensitized to even one night in jail. But I could see a situation where the amount of time that someone like Sean Combs has spent in a jail could have had a significant impact on him. That's not to say that he deserved the time served. But speaking of time, I would like to highlight the fact that when we were talking about sentencing, I mentioned that it was possible that he could get or that the prosecution would seek upwards of 10 years. And guess what they sought? 11. So in the B-roll, we're going to pull up that guy who told us we were brain dead, okay? Because it's clear that there were aggravating factors that the prosecution thought were applicable here, and the judge didn't dismiss them, but the judge did what the judge did. Speaking of voice and emotion, one of the things that I noted that kind of struck me was Nicole Westmore. Is that her last name?
Westmoreland.
Nicole Westmoreland. She got a little emotional. Yeah, Westmoreland. She got a little emotional and was holding back tears, according to the articles during her allocution. And it reminded me of a time when I was a baby prosecutor in misdemeanor domestic violence court. I covered a domestic violence sentencing for a colleague. I'd never seen the case before, but I was just reading the facts and going through the allocution procedurally the way we normally would. And it was a situation with a transgendered woman who had been brutally beaten by someone that she thought was her partner, but the person was basically planning the entire time to just rob her and assault her. And I believe part of the reason why the case ended up being prosecuted as a misdemeanor case is because the victim was blind and that there was an issue in terms of identification. But I was reading all of this. The facts were horrible. And like with each line, it was just getting worse and worse. And I found myself getting emotional to the point that I had to hand the file over to a colleague to finish the sentencing. And afterwards, the judge called me up to the bench and told me basically, you can't do that. You have to hold yourself together. And now to see Nicole Westmoreland, a senior, well-practiced advocate, and don't forget the judge in the Kim Potter case had cried after sentencing Kim Potter, and that got a lot of press. But I wonder if that sentiment of you have to hold it together, is that an old school sentiment? Is that the old way of doing things? Is advocacy right now more effective, right? If you're able to decrease that personal distance and be more human and let the weight of it show in your voice and demeanor. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I have two thoughts. I think sometimes getting emotional in an emotionally charged moment happens. I think we're human.
Yeah.
Again, as a defense attorney, you get very close to your client, and sometimes maybe you and your client don't always see eye to eye, but you are their advocate. You understand the whole client, and understanding that person that you fought so hard for, even though I would say all in all, the defense won this case because those transportation charges, they kind of are what they are. And I think they had them dead to rights from the beginning. They successfully fought off the more serious offenses, and probation was asking 5 to 7 years, and the judge only gave him 4. And like I said before, with good time, I think he'll be out in 2, which was my ultimate prediction for this. So I can understand why in that moment where, your client is going to lose their liberty or continue to lose their liberty, it can get emotional. That being said, I think we are professionals, and I think we need a clinical detachment. Like we are professionals. This is a court of law. We're here to be mouthpieces and advocates, and that's it. And I don't think we should be injecting emotion in these proceedings, because I think our words need to stand. I also think that can be confusing for a jury, and we're not supposed to inflame the passions of the jury.
Sure, I think it's completely different in front of a jury.
But even the judge, but I don't think that's appropriate for a judge. Now, if the defendant, the individual who has been accused and at that point convicted, legally guilty of an offense, who is going to jail, I think it's perfectly appropriate for them to show emotion. It's their crime. It's their life. The stakes are very high. But we're professionals, and I think there are ways to humanize. You should be humanizing your client, but not yourself. This is your job. So, I mean, I don't know what your perspective is, but I actually think we are losing some of the formality and decorum that have traditionally been present in the court. We're seeing it a lot in these court proceedings with the administration, where both sides are getting extremely heated. And I just don't think it's professional or appropriate. This is why I'm saying both sides, because some people are like, well, it's just the Trump government. Nah, but we're getting emotionally charged. And I think personally, we need to do better. I think the rules are important.
Yeah. So speaking of the administration, we are in the midst of a shutdown, right? The government is shut down. We know people who are very much impacted by this. The healthcare situation is pretty dire. And I don't think I ever thought that I would say this, but Marjorie Taylor
I was
Greene
going to
has sort
say.
of defected from her party. And, what's striking to me is that it's newsworthy that she's defected from her party because everyone right now is just, both parties, right? They're just so wedded to their party line and it's just been party over people for so long. So, shout out to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I will say that one article I read noted that part of her passion for this is because she has 2 young adult children who could be impacted, right? But that's real. That's real. And I think that, at some point our leaders are going to have to recognize that the way to stand apart is by standing up for what's right, not party messaging.
I wouldn't say she defected from the party. I would say she broke from President Trump and other Republicans on this. And I say that intentionally because she came out, I think it was today, and made clear that no, I still support President Trump. She's MAGA, but she made a good point. And this is to your point too. She's like, I don't work for the administration. I don't work for the White House. I'm an elected official in Congress and I'm accountable to my constituency. And my constituency is going to be harmed by this. I mean, so you're absolutely right. So will she. I think she said her premiums going up by hundreds of dollars, but so will a lot of other families in her state.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, I'm agreeing with you here where she basically said, I got elected to do a job, and that's to advocate for my people, for my district. And that's what I'm doing. And if that means having to go against what other people in my party are saying, well, that's great. But I'm beholden to my voters, not to my other Congress members.
But how rare is that? My point is, it's so rare to hear that.
It used to not be as rare. It wasn't. But now it is very rare. You're right. And especially in the MAGA world, but she's been doing that a lot lately. She has been breaking with MAGA on key issues that she's passionate about. And I think what's going to be interesting is to see if she suffers any long-term political consequences. She made clear she was not endorsed by Donald Trump when she won her election.
Yep.
And so, I think she's taking a calculation and saying, I won my election on who I am and what I'm delivering in Congress. I didn't need President Trump's endorsement. He's probably not going to endorse me again. And so long as I'm serving my district, I'll get reelected. And we'll see. It's a political gamble, but I think if she does get reelected and she doesn't have trouble, I would hope other Congress people from both sides
good example.
Follow her lead.
Yeah.
Right? That we're electing representatives, our representatives. We should not. I think it was Ezra Klein who made the point earlier this year that Congress has essentially ceded all of their power to the executive branch by following everything the administration does.
Sure.
They're no longer operating as an independent co-equal branch.
Right. They've gone from watchdog to lapdog. Okay.
I love that.
It's actually embarrassing and concerning and not what the framers intended by any stretch. Right. So it's a very interesting time. And it's not the first time in our history that the branches haven't been exactly equal. But it's definitely, I think, the most concerning time in our history based on what we're seeing.
Now, speaking of concerning, James Comey, have you been following that one?
I've been following that. Yeah, I've been following it enough to know that the woman in Virginia who need not be named, who was called in just to do the bidding of the administration. I mean, how embarrassing, right? To step into a role you're completely unqualified for, knowing you're being used to do someone else's bidding, lacking the experience to probably even recognize how unconstitutional what you're being asked to do is. I mean, I think it's shameful. And that indictment, did you read it? Have you ever seen such a sparse indictment for such, a significant matter? I was expecting a speaking indictment, like prose and text and pages.
No, I picked it up and I was like, where's the rest of it? It's too,
it wasn't even a
thing. Yeah, just for folks who may not know what we're talking about, James Comey, who's the former director of the FBI, who, he's famous for weeks before the 2016 election coming out and essentially confirming, making these statements about Hillary Clinton's emails. And for a long time, people said Comey is the reason Hillary lost. He was then instrumental in the investigation into the quote unquote Russian collusion, where there was all this investigation. Did the Trump administration collude with Russia? Ultimately, the findings were they did not. But Donald Trump has been upset about Comey's involvement in that investigation for many, many years. And has just Comey has been targeted for retribution since Trump left in 2020. And so finally, Trump started putting pressure on the Attorney General right before the indictment deadline came in late September. So if they didn't indict him by like September 30th, they would never be able to indict him. So, like you said, she who shall not be named, like Lord Voldemort, that's how we're going to handle it, got installed, and they ultimately indicted the case, apparently with just making the minimum number of grand jurors voting to hand up an indictment. Like, it wasn't unanimous by any means, and they rejected a third count. So they got this by the
skin of their teeth.
Which is crazy because the standard is probable cause. It's a low standard, and they barely made that. So if you don't even have probable cause in the grand jury where there's no defense, it's all the government case, how are you ever going to try that case in court? And I think I think the indictment and the PR and the shaming and the looming case is the point. Like, I don't think it really matters if they ultimately prevail in trial. I think Donald Trump is taking James Comey being charged
as the
win. Yeah. And he was charged, but you're right. Like, the indictment's it's like a few sentences long, alleging that it's all about Comey authorized a leak of the information about the Russia investigation, and then when was asked about it, when he in his congressional testimony denied that he authorized the leak. And apparently the people who are familiar with this are like, the FBI never interviewed me about this particular count, and Comey never authorized the leak.
Well, there was one person who came out recently, I think in the last 24 hours, that basically affirmatively said that James Comey instructed him not to be a leak and not to engage with the media. I don't know if that was the witness that led the former U.S. attorney who was forced to resign to find that this was problematic, because he wouldn't indict him. Right, exactly. And that is, for those who haven't been following, that is the issue here, right? There was a career prosecutor who looked at the case, a Trump appointee, right? Like, that person was also a Trump appointee, but declined to indict both Comey and Letitia James in New York. And the way the stories read, he was forced to resign as a result of not doing what the administration wanted him to do. And remember, the DOJ and the executive branch are not supposed to be, the DOJ is not the president's personal attorney. And that is how this DOJ seems to be functioning, which is very, very concerning. But you mentioned the Attorney General. Did you see her performance?
I did. I was what would you call that? Giving live color commentary on TV. I couldn't believe what I was. I was. There was a lot to work with. She gave us a lot of material, and some of what she gave us was not giving us anything. I mean, definitely deflected most questions about anything that would be unfavorable for DOJ, and then attack Democrats. She was so prepared. She looked like the White House spokesperson. She came in with a briefing binder, and she's like, hold on one second. She knew what was going to be asked. Anything about Epstein, anything about Tom Homan, that is the administration official who was caught on like an FBI wire accepting $50,000 in cash. She kept saying, I can't talk about it. It's an ongoing investigation. But then she would launch into these long-winded narrative attacks on Democrats. What did you think of it?
A couple of things. I think Senator Schiff did a great job of outlining all the questions that she refused to answer, right? You know, did you consult with ethics lawyers before you agreed that Trump could receive I think it was a $400 million jet from the Qataris? Who played a role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in the Epstein file? She wouldn't answer that. For Homan, she kept saying, the FBI has reviewed the file and they have found that there was no improper conduct. Ask Patel. And, you know, I think it was Senator Durbin who was like, that's your employee, right? The FBI reports to you, answer the question. But I think she just lost so much credibility. She really came across as someone who's beneath the office that she's holding right now. The way that she resorted to personal attacks, it was clear she came in with a list of personal attacks based on which senator was going to be asking her a question. And if she didn't want to answer something, she resorted to these personal attacks, telling people they didn't love their state. And she wishes they loved their city as much as they hate President Trump. I don't know, it was really concerning and really embarrassing. And just, I think we are, it was really, to think that this is congressional oversight, it just really showed how powerless Congress is right now.
Well, remember what I said about the court, where I said we're losing decorum?
Decorum, yeah.
This is what I'm saying. This is another venue where decorum, professionalism is the expectation, the gravity of these proceedings, who everybody is, how we want to represent ourselves, not just to our nation, but to the world who could be watching. We're losing that. And it's the same thing. We're leading by emotion. That's what you're attacking somebody personally and getting riled up. This is not the appropriate forum for that.
Yeah.
And again, I'll be fair. I mean, obviously some Democrats took the opportunity to also, as they do, I mean, in these types of hearings, you always have people getting on their soapbox.
Sure.
But you also had shots the other way. And it's very, like you said, disheartening and embarrassing. And to your point also, for the Attorney General, I mean, you are the chief law enforcement officer. To be behaving like that, it's totally unnecessary.
Yeah, she was performing for one person, and that's the President of the United States.
Correct.
Point blank.
Correct. And I'm sure that she got high marks from him because she did exactly what she wanted to do. Now, she had a startling lack of transparency. And the point I made that day was, for an administration who championed themselves, and she said this during the hearing, as the most transparent administration ever. And then to have that juxtaposed with Adam Schiff reading off all of the things she wouldn't talk about. I mean, the Homan example is very striking because
it's striking because the case is closed.
The case
she actually
is closed.
could answer questions on that.
She could, yes, exactly. And so she wasn't even answering the questions being asked. Okay, we get it. You said there wasn't enough for charges. We're just asking where the money is. There was $50,000 exchanged. It's caught on tape.
Yeah.
So we know that it actually
Don't
happened.
believe our lying eyes.
Where's the money?
Yeah.
And she wouldn't answer. It's like, where did he keep it? Did he give it back?
Right. Did he pay taxes on it?
Did he pay taxes? She just couldn't. She refused to answer the question.
She wouldn't. Not she
Where's
couldn't.
Where's the transparency?
Where's the transparency?
there?
Guess what? Because I think what she said was Trump is the most transparent president we've ever had. And I think what she meant is because he puts everything on Twitter or X or whatever it is now called, right? That is not the standard. That is not the standard.
No. Well, I'd also say about the Epstein files. I mean, there was another question about some photographs, completely unverified, but it was some alleged photographs of Trump with young girls, and she went on the attack. But what about that? She didn't say. Did you know she didn't categorically deny it?
Well, I think she is smart enough to know that she does not want to be subsequently indicted for perjury. So she was very careful in what she said and how she said it, and when she just deflected to Kash Patel or whomever, right? That was clear. She came prepared with her attack so she wouldn't have to perjure herself.
Well, I mean, like I said, I listened to a hearing for hours, but heard a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah, literally. We came away with nothing. The American public is not any better because of the information that they received. And I don't even know that there's going to be anything obtained by subpoena, right? Because the Dems have no subpoena power at the moment. So, I think that the most important thing, people need to watch these hearings. People need to read the news about what's happening, because there are a lot of things that are distracting. But I think there's a lot going on that we may not know, that we will soon learn. And we need to keep our eyes open as a community and as the American public.
I'll be keeping my eyes open, and I'll be following all these stories, because I'm sure when we come back next week, there'll be even more, because, we're not even on a 24-hour news cycle right now. I feel like we're on a 30-minute news cycle. I always get scared. I see an alert from my phone, like a push notification from one of the news stations. I'm like, oh Lord, please. Let it just be about Taylor Swift's new album and how everybody dislikes it.
Or Cardi B asking if she's the drama. Am I the drama?
That's all I want. I don't want any more war. So,
or Puffy's Jailhouse album. I mean, something.
Now, I could see that happening. R. Kelly did a track from his jailhouse phone, so you never know.
You never know. All right, sis. Well, it is always a pleasure. It's good to see you. We'll be back again. If you like what you heard, like and subscribe, and stay tuned for us.